This is what happens when you attempt to leave high school a year early to join the NBA. And it's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble. And they're making an example out of Butker. They want to make it impossible for anyone to preach or speak the traditional doctrine of Christianity regarding husbands, wives, and children. Now, talk about a divisive atmosphere they're creating, where tens of millions of Americans, probably more, are afraid to speak their mind. They will try to denigrate you, isolate you, cancel you, and ultimately silence you completely. This is what happens when you attempt to leave high school a year early.
Welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. Can you spot the racism? Of course you can. It's just so much of it. I tell you, it's one of those days where Power 96 says it's Monday, and to remember that it's only 4 days until the weekend. We got lots of that stuff coming up this morning. But we begin. Aren't you looking forward to the election being over with? And hopefully we don't have to talk about none of these guys anymore, particularly Donald Trump, who the New York Times over the weekend did something. Now we did something on this earlier, but the New York Times did a in-depth look as well, getting documents and other information on what Donald Trump is planning as he seeks re-election, what he plans if he is reelected. It's a massive expansion of his first term crackdown on immigration if he returns to power in 2025. We've talked ad nauseum about Project 2025, but among other things, he will seek a tenfold increase in the volume of deportations to more than 1 million per year. He plans to reassign federal agents and the National Guard to immigration control. He would also enable the use of federal troops to apprehend migrants. He plans to use military funds to build, quote, vast holding facilities to separate families, jail babies again, and even more at a record rate. He plans to suspend the nation's refugee program, and once again, no refugees from either African or Muslim countries. And of course, there's the retribution aspect of it. He has vowed to appoint a special prosecutor to go after the entire Biden family, Obama, Clintons, and everyone who has stood in his way, everyone who has beat him, and everyone who has prosecuted him. He has cited the precedent of his own indictments, his own conviction, criminal conviction, to declare that if he became president again and someone challenged him politically, so you got to listen very carefully. If someone challenged him politically, this is Donald Trump talking, he'll be able to direct this special prosecutor to go down, quote, go down and indict them. Now, we have made the comments many a times that a part of what the plan for Trump world is to, once he gets in, the only way he gets out or leaves office is to die in office. And that statement, sometimes you read between the lines, sometimes you read what's on the line. That statement, if someone challenged me politically, I can send a special prosecutor to go down and indict them. What he is telling you again, it's not like he hasn't been overt about it, but he's telling you again, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. I am eliminating all these departments and really consolidating them and only hiring people. And that goes down to the person who works at the Social Security Administration, the person that at the post office, the person who works for any government entity, and there's millions of civilian jobs, obviously. If you don't pledge allegiance to Trump, you won't have a job. Also, again, he says if someone challenges him politically, he could say go down and indict them. Meaning, folks, one of the meanings of that is I'm never leaving office. And if someone, a Democrat, an independent, says they're running for president, going to find a way of sending my special prosecutor to indict and charge them, I am going nowhere. Pennsylvania Avenue is going to be my domain. Get it right. So again, when 50 Cent says his craziness about black men and I mean, there's a whole lot more to that. I saw Byron Donalds, by the way, one of Trump's guys in blackface who is trying to be his vice president. So Al Sharpton, he was on Al Sharpton's show, and Al Sharpton talked about it brought him in and talked about how they both grew up in Brooklyn. He and Byron Donalds, he said their politics are different, but they're friends. And I just looked at Al and said, yeah, with friends like that, Al, do you need enemies? Do you need enemies, Mr. Jim Crow? But Amber Rose is doubling down on her support of Donald Trump. But who could care less? I could care less about Amber Rose. What does she do? How did she become famous? She's like a wannabe Kardashian. She got famous from being with Kanye West, and then had a baby with the other guys, like Kim Kardashian. Like, get these rappers have babies. But anyway, we don't need to go there. But Southbound 3000 says Trump is really serious about that eye for eye thing. The problem with that is it's one thing, not that we condone this, that the thought of, okay, retribution or whatever. The problem with that is everything that he wants to get retribution for is like he's already committed those acts against folks. And I mean, his hatred of Obama is simply this black man who is extremely popular, still extremely popular politically and otherwise. And Trump imagines having that type of true adulation, people truly adore him. People do not adore this guy. He's their cult leader, and for many of the powers behind him, it's all about he is being used and has been used to create the chaos he has. Because prior to him, there may have been a few, but not as much as now, many Republicans who would have gone along with this ugliness that he has begotten. But anyway, not to belabor Trump, because we really, really, I tell you what, it makes my stomach boil every time, make me sick having to talk about this guy and this election stuff. Because first of all, because you have an indicted felon who now he's indicted felon, a convicted felon, I should say, there are a number of countries that he cannot visit. And generally presidents, in fact, President Biden just returned from Normandy yesterday. But there are, presidents travel to different countries. There's the G7 summit. There's so many other events or meetings that take place. There are a number of countries, because Donald Trump is now a convicted felon, that he cannot go to. The guy can't own a gun in New York now. He can't vote in certain places, but yet he's the front runner, the Republican front runner. He's the presumptive nominee to run the country. A convicted felon with the codes. Think about that. Power 96 says Amber Rose is a mattress for overrated rappers. I am 100% sure she doesn't vote. He also said Byron got schooled by Sharpton. Well, Sharpton. It was a very, very interesting watch, very interesting TV. And Byron Donalds, for some reason, he really takes the page, and they all do take the page right out of Trump's book. I didn't say that. You're misinterpreted. And Sharpton, so glad somebody stands their ground. Sharpton, hey, I saw the video. We all saw the video. Yeah, we as Black people know about videos, and people unseen or trying or pretending to not see what they've seen. We can go all the way back uh, to Los Angeles and Rodney King, where that jury saw one of the most horrific beatings at that point ever recorded by where police were involved, and 12 people sat in the jury box and said they didn't do it. So come on, give me a break. Yes, Angela, I would love to hear Trump's probation meeting live. She says, Howard University, and we're going to switch topics now because, again, it is June the 10th, and I tell you what, we still got like 3-4 more months of talking about this Trump and the election. It's bad enough we got to continue to write about it and talk about it. It's like, wow. Greer asks, does Nikki Haley think she will have another chance to run while Southern Baptists are removing women pastors? All this is going on that we get so we get off track, not off track, but people get distracted. And that's what Trump is all about, distraction. But Howard University is cutting ties with Sean Diddy Combs. They rescinded his honorary degree that was awarded to him, disbanding a scholarship program in his name, all because, of course, that recently released 2016 video that showed him just absolutely battering R&B singer, his former girlfriend, Cassie Cassandra Ventura. In a statement, Howard University, and you can read about this in the Washington Informer, it says, Mr. Combs' behavior as captured in a recently released video is so fundamentally incompatible with Howard University's core values and beliefs that he is deemed no longer worthy to hold the institution's highest honor. That was the statement from the board at Howard University. And they go on to say that this acceptance of that honorary degree revokes all honors and privileges associated with the degree. Accordingly, the board has directed that his name be removed from all documents listing honorary degree recipients of Howard University. They also directed university administrations to cut financial ties, including, and this is the part I like, including returning the $1 million contribution that he gave. And I will tell you why I like that. If you're going to cut ties, and you have every right to do so, and you should absolutely cut ties with this monster of a human being, give him the money back. Make a stand. When Bill Cosby went on trial, and like 70 different universities rescinded the honorary degrees, not one of them returned any of the more than $200 million that the Cosby family gave to those schools. Cut ties. All money ain't good money. Is what people say, right? But that's the part I like. Howard University, as y'all say today, they stood on business. And this is what an HBCU should be about and is about in this case with Howard University, the great institution that it is. And Bison for Life is on X saying that as a Howard alum, the board did the right thing. There's no question the board did the right thing. We sometimes we listen, growing up, who didn't get a spanking? And sometimes we have to crack the proverbial whip. That's a bad term to use, considering the day and age we live in, right? What's going on. But crack the proverbial whip on our own folks. They need it. 50 Cent needed it. Ben Crump really looked mortified. If you caught any of that video of he and 50 Cent on Capitol Hill last week, he looked absolutely mortified with that statement, because that statement, at least publicly, is everything that Ben Crump stands against, at least publicly. Now, we haven't had any statements from Ben Crump, at least I haven't, since that incident. But I'd be really interested to hear from Ben Crump. He bought, after all, 50 Cent to Capitol Hill. Be very interested to hear Ben Crump's response, and quite kind of surprised that we haven't heard anything, because that was really out of pocket. It was horrible. Mike V says a lot of students depend on those donations. Unfortunately, taken away only hurts them, not the person doing the donation, and that is obviously true. And this is where you hope that, okay, someone else in the community, someone else with the means of a Diddy will step in and see this. And Howard University, by the way, has a host of very successful, very wealthy alum, folks who have attended Howard University, have gone on to massive success, like Diddy. And remember, Diddy didn't even graduate. So you would hope that someone would see that and say, you know what, we will take care of that. And it doesn't have to be a someone, it can be someone's, plural. But I think they did the right thing here. 1,000% the right thing. The money goes back with you. We don't want you or your money, and he could never hold that over their heads. And that's what I'm talking about. And check this out. A mostly Black neighborhood in Hartford, Connecticut has turned to a group of armed citizens to help patrol their streets. They hope that the move cuts down on the prevalence of violent crime in the area. The armed group calls themselves the, quote, Self-Defense Brigade, which is made up of around 40 legally armed Black citizens. Members volunteer to patrol Hartford's North End and wear body cameras. They generally patrol the streets on nights and weekends. The group also has access to, they are really not playing, to drones and 75 home surveillance systems to help them keep an eye on things. And reportedly, as you see that graphic there, homicides, all types of crime has been down pretty substantially since they've started this. Now, law enforcement and others, including the mayor out there in Hartford, are against this. The one thing they are doing is making a difference. And you just hope that this will, a lot of things you hope for in this case, including the fact that each of these members will be just what they are, what they stand to be, which is trying to keep the neighborhood safe, peaceful, and not engage in. I can't help but think about the guardian angels from the 1970s and 80s in New York. Many might know the name Curtis Lee, where he ran for mayor recently of New York. But that, well, they used to patrol the subways, but it turned out that that wasn't exactly, not all things were what they appeared to be, that the guardian angels, at least the leadership, um, wasn't quite up to snuff, put it that way. We'll leave it at that. But these guys, they decided to police themselves, take care of home themselves, and part of the goal is to restore dignity and pride into another Black neighborhood. So, turning our attention from Hartford down to down south in Florida, this thing, you might remember the um, white woman who was harassing this 9-year-old boy and baited him to go get his mother. Well, she then proceeded to go to the house. The little boy standing there as his mother comes to the door. She doesn't even open the door, and the white woman shot her through the door. Well, accusations, and she was yelling all these racial slurs and things of that nature. But the prosecutor said they will not come up in trial. They will not use those racial slurs in a trial in Marion County. Susan Lorenz, she's facing a manslaughter charge as she allegedly shot and killed Ejike AJ Owens. Her family accuses her of Owens's family accuses Lorenz of using a lot of hateful and racial speech and other derogatory names toward Owens and her children. They said it is part of the reason why Owens went to her neighbor's front door before Lorenz allegedly opened fire, killing her in June of 2023. In response to the defense motion, prosecutors said that the topic of race will not come up in the trial. So part of that is that they don't want this, especially down in Florida, to become solely a race issue. They just want to stick to the facts. This lady in cold blood, killed this woman after harassing this woman's children. And prosecutors said they just don't want to mix this up. And this is what I kind of argue with and have argued about. And again, I said I hate mentioning him, but I do. And I do, but I got to juxtapose it because Special Prosecutor Jack Smith is messing around down there in Florida and has messed around to the point we will not see, unless, of course, he loses the election, Donald Trump tried for his 9/11 crimes. 9/11 crimes. 9/11, January 6th and 9/11. I mean, two things that. But his January 6th, his alleged crimes on January 6th, because the documents case down there, which is a very important case, granted, he has every right. And I continue to research this, and folks, I don't need any validation. I know I'm right. He can drop that case and come here to DC and try him in Judge Tanya Chutkin's court for January 6th. And if everything breaks right, he can go refile those documents cases in Florida and mess around with Eileen Cannon, the judge down there, who is an unabashed, dedicated Trump supporter, who, as expected, has delayed everything to ensure that Trump doesn't stand trial. Allegedly breaking a lot of ethics laws. But see, in this case, the prosecutors, in this case of Ms. Owens, the prosecutors got it right. Let's keep our eye on the prize. Let's keep our eye on the ball. We know it's race. This was racially motivated. We know that this woman is a stark raving racist. But there's no need to bring that up because we're going to have some. You got a Florida jury, and you're dealing with Florida laws. You're dealing with laws that Byron Allen, who represents Florida in the House of Representatives, that he's so proud of, that made him say that life for Black families were better during Jim Crow, or marriage for Black families, however he put it, however he tried to spin it. So the prosecutors down in Florida, you have to understand that this was a chess move on their part. Laws right, exactly. As Greer notes, in Florida, laws that allow the murderer of Trayvon Martin go free. You got to understand the arena that you're playing in. You know, professional athletes, when they go to other arenas, when they go on the road, even though they've been to all of the arenas just about, still it's not their home arena. So they go in early. Let's use basketball, for example, and they do a shoot around in the morning. And then it's an optional shoot around in the morning, but a mandatory shoot around in the afternoon before a 7 or 7:30 p.m. game. They have to get acclimated to certain bounces that may happen on this particular floor. And that prosecutor down there in Florida is already acclimated to what happens down there in the so-called Sunshine State. By the way, speaking of Florida, Greer, our girl, is down there. Power 96's Redbone is down there hanging out with Mickey Mouse. She is doing some reporting from Disney. So looking forward to what Dawn comes up with from her visit to the wonderful world of Disney. Now, there were several things that were posted, and I want to just D.L. Hughley continues to there she is. Power 96. Does that make your Monday morning? But there's some things. D.L. Hughley continues to be what 50 Cent isn't, what Stephen A. Smith isn't, what Ice Cube isn't. So when we talk about these insidious Black entertainers, there's the other side. And even Luther Campbell, Uncle Luke. I mean, he broke down that whole Jim Crow situation too, and other things. I mean, he was wise enough to do that. But as Katia Woods, we have Katia on from the Philadelphia Tribune from time to time, and as she pointed out, yesterday he posted something, and this is not where I was going with this, but he posted some things about if Biden does this, he will easily win all of the Black vote. Katia reminded him, she responded to his tweet with her tweet, reminding him that the president does not make laws. And this is what Luther Campbell he posted a series of things that is the responsibility of Congress. And none of that stuff the president can go around and do himself. So she had to educate our Two Live Crew founder on that. But on DL had reposted something that OJ Spivey posted at OJ Philly from Roy Wood Jr., the Black comedian. Roy Wood Jr. is so funny because part of his handle he's an ex-Jedi. But it was a group of men discussing who lived during Jim Crow, discussing Jim Crow and what was life like for them under Jim Crow. And one of the guys telling Roy Wood Jr. that um, they would send, they sent in one case a guy who was light skinned, or as they said, high yellow, into a whites only establishment to get some food. They was, and one time they sent him in, and he never came out. That's just one of the tidbits from that. You can check it out. The conversation. You can either find it on at Real DL Hughley or at OJ Philly. But these conversations are what needs to take place when you got a person who could be vice president of the United States, a black person at that, black man, romanticizing Jim Crow. So you might want to check that out. Bison for Life says celebrities and politics are not the best mix. Not at all. You're right. Many tend to spout disinformation or jump on trends for social media clout. Yeah, and many speak out of total ignorance. I mean, just outright ignorance. Um, One of the things I saw, and I was sharing, well, before I get to that, and I know Greer has this, sometimes mothers, and we celebrate mothers, obviously, can be really, really give their children such a hard time. And I bring that up only because of the story of Tina Turner. And Greer shared this with me, and she captured it. And I think, yeah, she wrote to me. She said, "This is sad and hard to get my head around." But if we have that, Greer, can we play this Tina Turner interview? It's very short, but to the point. It was heartbreaking to watch, to listen to. We know
My
Tina
kind.
passed away, but here we go.
When I became a star, of course, like then she was happy because I bought her house. I did all kinds of things for her. She was my mother. You know, I was trying to make her comfortable because she didn't have a husband. She was alone, but she still didn't like me. Even after I became Tina, Ma still was a little bit, who did that or who did this? And I said, I did it not. You know, I was happy to show my mother what I did. I had a house, I had gotten a car. And she said, I don't believe it. Now, you're my daughter. I know you didn't, something to this effect. You know, she didn't want me. She didn't want to be around me, even though she wanted my success. But I did for her as if she loved me. Ma was not.
Yeah, I just found that to be it's sad um, to watch a uh, a child try to buy their parents' love, and that's pretty much where Tina Turner wound up trying to buy her mother's love. Um, we have to all do better, right? We all have to do better. I just thought that was just a touching, in many ways, not touching in a good way, obviously, but a very touching thing to see. And like I said, Greer shared with me. She also shared with me this Rudy Giuliani. So things are so off the chain, racist and bad and disgusting. Um, And not only did he call Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis out of her name, but he used a very, very derogatory term to describe her. And I think Greer's going to show us that now.
Then I've got two prosecutors, Fanny the Hoe.
Yeah, we heard that right. We heard that right. This mentally disabled human waste called Giuliani refers to the district attorney. This is how bad politics and well, politics have gotten. Not, and again, not to think that things were politically that people wasn't racist back when I was growing up, because they were extremely racist. I mean, I have been subjected to police racism. I never forget walking down Ventura Boulevard in California, and I wasn't a child at the time. I was a grown. I was in my 20s, in the San Fernando Valley, early in the morning, and LAPD, two officers in the car. They see me walking. They slow down. They go over the loudspeaker and say, "Hey, boy, did you have your watermelon this morning?" These are two Los Angeles Police Department officers on duty. And, I had my issues of being like a hothead, and sometimes I still am, I have to admit. But when I look back, I realize how grateful I am that I didn't allow that to overtake me that day. Certainly in New York, there were sections of New York we just didn't venture into growing up. But the point is, I just don't remember American politics being the way they are today, being so hateful and so racially charged. Shanice Wright says, "Don't let Rudy off that easy. He is mentally disabled. He is just a plain old piece of well, he is. He's all that. You're right. You're right. I was just trying not to be a hothead, Shanice Wright." And yes, Power 96. We know as New Yorkers. Well, I know as a New Yorker, Rudy is a longtime racist. And Power 96 says he will die penniless, and Fonnie will send him to prison. Bankruptcy will not save him. That's the other thing about this too. Since when it became in vogue to attack your prosecutors, your judges? I believe, and I was briefly say this, I believe Bill Cosby went to prison because of that very thing. Why do you say that? It's not to say, again, it's not about guilt or innocence. I was there. I watched this stuff. After the first trial ended in a hung jury, his spokesperson and his wife's spokesperson stood on that courthouse steps and called the judge a racist and everything else. The same judge that would once again preside over the retrial, and the same judge who I will die on this hill, that did everything in his power to make sure that Cosby was convicted. You just can't, you cannot, as much as people want to, you can't go after a judge or a prosecutor in that way. You will pay for it. Unless you're Donald Trump. Let's be real. Unless you're Donald Trump. Another thing Greer pointed out to me, she shared with me, now we know the history of racism in Boston. And of course, the NBA Finals is in Boston. And Celtic fans, white Celtic fans, took it upon themselves to go after one of their former stars who plays for the other team now, Kyrie Irving, the extremely talented Kyrie Irving. And they had a blow-up doll of Kyrie, and the things that they were doing to it, of course, is what they wish they were doing to him, and what the Klan would do to Black folks.
Kyrie stomped it, beat it up, bit it, and ripped it.
Y'all are crazy.
It's so ignorant. It's so ignorant, and that's why. See, I have a
Years
hard
ago when he
time.
left the team. This also reminds me of how when Bill Russell played for the Celtics in the 60s, he was often called the N-word
he's
and
gonna break it
monkey
all down.
by racist Celtics fans. And when he moved to Reading, Massachusetts, which is about 16 miles north of Boston, racists once broke into his home, spray painted the N-word, pooped in his bed, and he was constantly harassed by the cops. It also reminded me of how racism in Massachusetts in general is deeply entrenched. For example, in 1788, Massachusetts barred Blacks from residing there longer than 2 months under penalty of imprisonment, hard labor, and whipping.
Yeah, I find it. I enjoy sports. My wife and I go to. We have seats at the Knicks games, Rangers games. When I'm here in DC, certainly if the Mets are in town, I take in the Nationals. Thanks, a lot of that is thanks to the Washington Informer. And I just have a hard time being that invested. I'm a fan, but win or lose, it's entertainment. It's entertainment, folks. When your team wins the championship, don't burn the city down. Mike V says racism in Boston is strong AF. You guys know what that means. And Mike V says he deals with it every day. He says they don't have a doll for Gordon Hayward when he left the Celtics. Austin is chiming in that Boston is still the racist capital of the North. And Power 96 says white Celtics fans are no different than the KKK in Mississippi. Something that, and Shanice Rice says racism in the form of police harassment is a way Marshawn Lynch left the Buffalo Bills. He said he kept getting pulled over. But something that Mike V pointed out, it always is at the forefront of my mind as well, Mike. He says, I'm interested in knowing, when we're talking about the Giuliani's attack on Fonnie Willis, calling her out of her name like that. He says, I'm interested in knowing where all the women's rights activists are to defend Fonnie and Letitia James from these attacks. And it just, once again, reminds me that Black folks, as much as we talked about the 50 cents and everybody spouting off being ignorant, we have no allies, and Black women in particular. And that's why, and somebody posted this, I want to say it was somebody from the Black press. There was a female, I don't know if it was Dawn or Totally Randy or Katia, but somebody posted about that, about Black women. It's Black women, when are Black men going to stand up for Black women? And Bison for Life says Caitlin Clark fans online shows racism is sports. In sports is a stark reminder it's alive and well. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And here's something else that's heartbreaking. And I don't know. I think Greer shared that with me as well. And she did. It's so heartbreaking. So we often, of course, and understandably so, focus so much on our plight, particularly here in the United States. And what kills me though, and I'm not talking about us focusing on somebody else's plight, but you hear about how America is the leader of the free world, and America, they go in and they try and basically be the leader in humanitarian efforts and things of that nature. A story that just breaks the heart. I don't care what ethnicity, background, or wherever these young girls are, but it absolutely devastates me. Um, Young girls in Afghanistan, in this case, we had the video. If you have the video, Greer, still, we could show it. It is such a heartbreaker. Um, Long story short, if we don't have the video available, uh, they are interviewing this young girl. Someone's interviewing this young girl. I'm not sure who. I wasn't able to ascertain who. She's 9 years old, and her she's talking about how the only people she loves is her mom and dad. Well, the reason she's saying this is because she's being sold. And so is her 4-year-old sister. The father comes on the camera and he talked about how his family has been devastated. They have nothing. They owe debt, something like $1,900 or whatever they owe this debt, 1,900 US dollars that equates to whatever it is in Afghan money. And he says, he tells the guys, the only thing I have, I could offer you are my daughters, 9 years old, 4 years old. He figures he can get $1,900 for the 9-year-old and another $1,500, I guess, or whatever it was for the 4-year-old. He says that's the only way they would leave him alone if he figured it out. And I'm sitting there just watching this, wanting to somehow travel to Afghanistan, find this man, and finish him off. But these things go all the time without notice because it's normal in certain areas, and yet, our concern is certain countries and making sure that they stay solvent, making sure that they stay in power, the regimes and things of that nature. And yeah, it's true. That is pretty normal in America. And we've seen the whole, you've seen like with Epstein and others, while they have criminalized certain things, but we've seen our politicians, particularly the so-called conservatives, push legislation to allow for the marriage of 12-year-olds. We had just a couple of weeks ago a congressman, had the audacity to say that he backed such a bill because the girls are, quote, ripe and fertile. This is the world that we live in has grown to have this hate for children and for seniors. Argue with yourself. I've seen enough to come to that conclusion. An African American woman's quest to buy a pricey condo near the Virginia Beach Oceanfront impeded by the white homeowner's refusal because of her race is just the latest example of the bias, the racism that Black folks encounter in America. Raven Baxter detailed her situation, and it was not only unusual in this way. Jane Walker is 84 years old and candidly told her agent why she didn't want Baxter, who is a molecular biologist, not to mention a social media maven, who's very wealthy, She didn't want her to buy any condo. She had went through the whole process, the entire process from a real estate agent to finding a house to going through the underwriting process, getting approved, getting insurance, everything. And then the white homeowner discovered that she was Black and said, nope, I'm not going through with this sale. The incident has gotten tons of publicity because Baxter wrote about it on Twitter, where she has about 165,000 followers. She also has her own website, Dr. Raven, the Science Maven. She says, I think that because we've come so far in history, we think that things can't happen anymore. And we forget racism isn't something we just leave in the past. It's something that can pop up at any time. She says, we often move forward in fits and starts or even fall backwards. Also, unless you're the person directly affected by such bias, it's very easy to dismiss. And so she filed a discrimination claim with the Virginia Fair Housing Office and U.S. Department of Office and Urban Development. But I love what she wrote there on her social media page. She says, all this after the inspection, contract agreement, down payment, baby. I'm either buying your house or buying your block. You choose. And that would be the power move of all power moves. Denise Rolock Barnes, the publisher of the Washington Informer. And the Informer, by the way, is 60 years old this year. It is, I'm sure Denise has a team planning something big for this fall. So support the Washington Informer, WashingtonInformer.com. And if you're in the DMV area, there are several places you can still pick up the physical copy of the newspaper. But definitely, it's a Black woman-owned business. Yes, she took over that business from her father some, 30 plus years ago. And that newspaper is one of the very best, and I won't say one of the very best in the Black press, but one of the very best in media altogether. But Denise says Black women are not only demonstrating in the streets, but they are filling the seats in law school, med school, business schools, etc., fighting the same fights and preparing for the battles ahead. We are here, and history shows we've held front seats, though ignored, fighting for Black America's progress. Ask Fonnie Willis. Her girls have her back. That is awesome to hear. Power 96 says, I wish Black people would do the same when the gentrification people come into our Black neighborhoods to buy land and property. It's a long, long history in that argument there. And yes, Mike V, the vice president was just on the campaign trail talking about the success of racial bias in home appraisals. What a coincidence. Yeah. Yeah, and it has been, and she was, not that she made that up, Kamala Harris, the vice president, but I think, and maybe this is part of your point, I think when certain folks hear something like that and they're in a position to try and do something negative about it, this is what they do. But be interesting to see what happens to in this situation here in Virginia Beach. She went through the whole process, the walkthrough, everything, and being denied at this junction, being denied at any junction because of the fact that she's a Black woman is absolutely disgraceful. But being denied at this part in the process, it's just so troublesome. Daniela Pierre says, congratulations on 60 years and many more. Thanks for keeping us all informed. That was the longtime slogan of of the Washington Informer. So Daniela Pierre must be a reader of the Washington Informer, as many are, but be informed is the slogan. Yeah, and speaking of gentrification, let's go to this clip here that Greer has, of course. Doesn't that make you want to make sure that you, like Power 96 says, let's protect our neighborhoods? Come on. We can't have people doing that in our streets where we used to do, I remember block parties and things like that. I mean, come on. This ain't right. What Chris Rock said, that ain't right. Oh, no. That's not right. Come on now. That's enough. I'm insulted. Cheryl Brown, hey Cheryl. Cheryl Brown says, "Good morning. This is so real, and the scary part, they really want to go back in time and make women baby machines. We as Black people have to wake up and come together because we are that strong, and they know this." So I know Cheryl Brown, and Cheryl Brown, folks, has a voice that not many people that you hear in music has. It's an incredible voice. We used to do we used to promote and produce music shows, and Cheryl came and sang one of my favorite songs of all time, Gladys Knight. And if everyone should ever write my life story, you know that song. For whatever reason why you're the best thing that ever happened to me. So Cheryl sang that song, and it was packed out at the University of Scranton, and just brought everybody to their feet. And it was just amazing. If you close your eyes, you thought Gladys Knight was singing the song. But so it's good to see Cheryl joining Let It Be Known this morning. Power 96 says the racist Catholics in New Orleans refuse to sell property to Black people. He says they're evil and sick. And Shanice Wright says Dr. Riche, who's been a guest on this program, stated that the contract is signed and legally binding, so there is no backing out. Well, there you go. And listen, our girl said that mess around, she'll buy the whole block. So there you go, Shanice Wright. But see, lots of things go on. We unfortunately sometimes, a lot of times, unfortunately, I should say, have to talk about the election, and particularly the convicted Republican presumptive nominee. But then we get to talk about other stuff, which is much better than talking about that guy. And Denise, speaking of Denise Rolock Barnes, she doesn't want Trump on his name or photo or anything like that on the front page of her paper. And I think her former editor, Kevin, once said, "I want him on the front page when he's convicted." And he was convicted, and I noticed that he was on the front page, at least the story. I think the jump page probably had his picture, but we certainly had him on the front page of the Informer after he was convicted. So that is how we roll, the Black press. That's how the Informer rolls. And again, shout out to the Informer. We're going to be doing some things later this year about the 60 years of the Washington Informer. But stay tuned to the Black press. Wherever you might be, you should be able to find easily a Black-owned newspaper from the Black Press of America. Whether you're in New York with the Amsterdam News and the Beacon and other papers there, or whether you're in DC at the Informer, or whether you're in Sacramento with the Observer, you can find a Black newspaper. And you can also find it online. And what you also need to find It's our YouTube page, the Let It Be Known's YouTube page, and subscribe to Let It Be Known News. We'll bring you some more tomorrow. Thanks for watching.